The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the abandoned pier bathed in the eerie glow of twilight. The wooden boards, cracked and weathered by years of neglect, creaked underfoot as Tyler and Ben cautiously made their way toward the remnants of the once vibrant amusement park. The air was thick with the smell of salt water, mixed with the faint, musty scent of decaying wood. A cold breeze swept in from the ocean, carrying with it the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. The atmosphere was heavy with the weight of forgotten memories, and the friends couldn't shake the feeling that they were trespassing on something sacred. "This place is a graveyard," Tyler muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, but it's got history," Ben replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "Remember the stories? They say the whole thing shut down after the accident." Tyler nodded. The accident. Everyone in town knew about it, though no one really talked about it anymore. Years ago, a malfunction on one of the rides had caused a catastrophic collapse, killing several children and a few adults. The pier had been closed ever since, left to rot and fall apart, the memory of that day lingering like a stain that could never be washed away. "Why did we come here again?" Tyler asked, glancing around nervously. Ben shrugged. "Curiosity, I guess. I just wanted to see it for myself. Get a look at where it all happened. But hey, if you're too freaked out, we can always..." Tyler cut him off. "No, I'm good. Let's just get this over with." As they walked deeper into the heart of the pier, the shadows grew longer, and the once vibrant colors of the faded carnival signs turned to ghostly shades of gray. The rides loomed like skeletal remains against the darkening sky, their metal frames twisted and rusted beyond repair. The old roller coaster, once the crown jewel of the pier, stood in the distance, its tracks winding through the air like a serpentine ghost. "Look at that," Ben said, pointing to a half-collapsed funhouse. Its facade, once painted with grinning clowns and bright colors, was now a haunting mask of peeling paint and broken glass. The entrance gaped like an open mouth, daring them to step inside. Tyler hesitated. "You really want to go in there?" Ben grinned, his bravado hiding a sliver of fear. "Why not? It's just an old building. What's the worst that could happen?" With a deep breath, Tyler followed Ben into the funhouse. The interior was a labyrinth of shattered mirrors and rotting wood, the floor sticky with decades of grime. The air was stale, suffused with the scent of mildew and something else. Something sweet, like cotton candy, left to rot in the sun. The darkness inside seemed thicker, almost tangible, pressing in on them as they navigated the narrow, twisting hallways. Their footsteps echoed in the silence, a hollow, ominous sound that sent shivers down Tyler's spine. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, each beat a reminder of how alone they were in this decaying tomb of laughter and joy long forgotten. "Man, this place is seriously messed up," Ben said, his voice strained as they turned a corner. The hall they entered was lined with cracked mirrors, each reflecting their distorted images back at them. Tyler's reflection seemed to leer at him, its eyes hollow and its grin too wide. "Let's keep moving," Tyler urged, trying to shake the feeling of unease that was growing stronger with each step. As they ventured deeper into the funhouse, the air grew colder, and a faint whispering sound began to fill the silence. At first, Tyler thought it was just the wind, but the more he listened, the more it sounded like voices, children's voices laughing and chattering, as if they were just out of sight, playing some unseen game. "Do you hear that?" Tyler asked, stopping in his tracks. Ben nodded, his face pale. "Yeah. But where is it coming from?" The whispering grew louder, more distinct, until it was all around them, echoing off the walls of the funhouse. Tyler turned in circles, trying to locate the source, but the voices seemed to be everywhere at once. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the whispering stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, an oppressive weight that settled over them like a shroud. Tyler's skin prickled with fear, his breath coming in shallow gasps as he strained to hear anything. Any sign that they weren't alone. "Let's get out of here," Ben said, his voice trembling. "This place is giving me the creeps." Tyler didn't argue. They turned to leave, but the moment they did, the hallway in front of them shifted. The mirrors, once cracked and dirty, now reflected a different scene. A scene from the past. The funhouse was no longer empty and decayed. It was alive with children, their faces painted with bright smiles as they ran through the halls, their laughter echoing in the air. Tyler blinked, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. "What the hell?" Ben reached out to touch one of the mirrors, but as his fingers brushed the surface, the scene inside changed. The children were no longer smiling, their faces twisted into expressions of terror, their mouths open in silent screams as they ran from something unseen. The laughter was replaced by the sound of creaking metal and splintering wood, the sounds of the accident. Tyler grabbed Ben's arm, pulling him away from the mirror. "We need to go. Now." They ran, their footsteps pounding against the floor as they fled the funhouse. But the pier wasn't the same as before. The buildings and rides that had once stood in ruin were now whole, but something was wrong. The air was thick with an unnatural fog that clung to their skin like icy fingers. The smell of salt water was overpowering, mixed with the sickly sweet scent of cotton candy and popcorn that seemed to seep from the very walls. "Ben, what's happening?" Tyler gasped as they skidded to a stop in front of the old Ferris wheel. The ride, once a towering giant, now loomed over them like a dark sentinel, its seats swaying gently in the wind. "I don't know, but we need to find a way out of here," Ben replied, his eyes wide with fear. As they turned to leave, the fog parted, revealing the silhouettes of children standing in the distance. Their forms were shadowy, indistinct, but their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Tyler's heart froze as he realized who they were. The children from the accident. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow and lifeless, yet they stared at the two friends with an intensity that made Tyler's blood run cold. The children began to move, their steps slow and deliberate as they approached. Tyler backed away, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he tried to make sense of what was happening. "Ben, we need to get out of here, now," Tyler whispered, his voice shaking. Ben didn't respond. He was staring at the children, his face a mask of terror. "Tyler, look." Tyler turned to where Ben was pointing and felt his stomach drop. The children were no longer children. Their bodies were twisted and deformed, their skin pale and translucent, revealing the bones beneath. Their eyes were empty sockets, and their mouths were open in silent screams. They reached out with bony hands, their fingers like claws as they moved closer. "Run!" Tyler shouted, grabbing Ben's arm and pulling him away from the advancing figures. They sprinted down the pier, their footsteps echoing in the fog. The rides and buildings around them seemed to close in, the shadows growing longer and darker as the children followed, their movements unnaturally fast. The sound of their footsteps grew louder, a relentless, echoing rhythm that matched the frantic beating of Tyler's heart. Tyler glanced back, his blood turning to ice as he saw the children gaining on them. Their hollow eyes locked onto his, and he felt a wave of cold wash over him, freezing him in place. "Tyler, come on!" Ben shouted, snapping Tyler out of his trance. They reached the edge of the pier, the wooden boards creaking ominously beneath their weight. The ocean stretched out before them, a dark, endless expanse that offered no escape. Tyler's mind raced, trying to find a way out, but the children were closing in, their ghostly forms almost upon them. "We're trapped," Ben whispered, his voice tinged with despair. Tyler looked around frantically, his gaze landing on a small boat tied to the pier. It was old and weathered, its paint chipped and peeling, but it was their only chance. "The boat. We can make it to the boat." They bolted for the boat, their footsteps thundering on the wooden boards. The children were almost upon them, their ghostly hands reaching out, their mouths open in silent screams. Tyler and Ben reached the boat, scrambling inside and grabbing the oars. Tyler's hand shook as he untied the rope, his heart pounding in his chest. Come on, come on, come on." The boat lurched forward, drifting away from the pier as they began to row. The fog closed in around them, the pier disappearing from view as they pushed farther out to sea. But the children didn't stop. Their ghostly forms hovered above the water, their empty eyes locked onto the boat as they followed, relentless in their pursuit.